Well, it's good to be here today. I really enjoyed my time with the Sunday school class this morning, and good to get to know a few of you. So I'm Brother Dave. I serve as a missionary in the Philippines and Micronesia. My wife and daughter are actually down in Los Angeles. For the last 2 days, they've been at Disneyland. It's like, whoa! So I dropped them off in Boise on Thursday on the way to Oregon, and I'll pick them up tomorrow in Portland, and then they'll go along with me. But this is like a special late graduation gift to my daughter from Aunt Karen. So they're being spoiled this weekend. And then our son Joel is a junior at Northwest Nazarene University studying biology, and he wants to be a physician assistant. So it's great to be here this morning. I want to share a little bit about what God has been teaching us as especially Rhonda and me over the last 2 years. We've been Nazarene missionaries. We're just finishing our 11th year. We were in the Philippines from 1999 to 2002, then in Australia till 2005, and then back to the Philippines 2008. We came back to the U.S. for some medical reasons for my daughter, who has epilepsy. She had surgery in 2015, stopped her seizures. We praise God for that. That allowed us to go back to mission work in 2016. So we've been back in the Philippines for the last 2 years. Well, you see up here a picture of our family, but also a Bible verse, Acts chapter 1, verse 8. That's a pretty well-known verse. Jesus told these words to his disciples just before he went to heaven. And he told his disciples to wait in Jerusalem until the Holy Spirit comes upon you. And then you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the world. The difficult word in this verse is witness. Sometimes this word is intimidating to us. It makes us a little scared. It's like, oh, I can't be a missionary. I can't go out and preach on the street corner. Well, actually, this word doesn't need to be so scary. And I want to just share our story with you and the story of what's happening in the Philippines and Micronesia and see how God will speak to you through this. We live about 2 miles from the seminary where we have our field office. And one morning, Rhonda and I were driving to the office, and we kept passing this jeepney. And I told Rhonda she needs to get a picture of this. This one's pretty cool, really interesting. Jeepneys are the public transportation in the Philippines. So she got her camera out and just snapped this picture. He was moving and we were moving, so just perfect timing. But this is a commentary about the Philippines. So it's interesting if you look at this. I don't know, can we cut these lights up here at all? The spotlights, that would help a little bit so people can see the slides a little better. Yeah, perfect. So you notice that there's Jesus on the driver's door, okay? And then you see the 3 bad guys. Yeah, I think one of them's a joker and some of the other bad guys are the villains. And then if you look across the bottom on the mud flap, can you read that? It says, God will make a way. Right. Now, what's interesting is that he was moving and we were moving at the same time, and just perfect timing. What are we in front of? The Baptist Bible Seminary and Institute. This is a block away from our Theological Seminary, Nazarene Seminary. So this is a commentary about the Philippines because 85% of the Philippines would consider themselves Christian because of the Catholic influence. But very few of them actually go to church regularly. Maybe Christmas and Easter. And Jesus is kind of like a good luck charm. Let's just put a picture of him on the jeepney and maybe our trip will be safe. But yet they don't really know Jesus personally. They don't know what the Bible says about Jesus. So although we're going in front of the Baptist Bible Institute, they probably don't even know the people inside the jeepney really who Jesus is. About a year ago, Rhonda, Shannon, and I were in northern Thailand in the city of Chiang Mai for a training on community health evangelism. We had free time during the evening, so one evening we went to the night market. It's a place full of souvenirs and all kinds of fun stuff to buy. We were walking down the sidewalk, and our daughter, Shan, sees these 2 ladies selling beautiful cloth. So she goes up and starts talking with them. Too bad Shan wasn't here. She would know all of you by the time you leave. She's just very friendly, just very loving. And so she starts talking to these ladies. You know what religion they are, probably, by their head covering. Yeah, in Asia we call them neighbors. So these are our neighbor ladies. So Shan asked them, do you know Allah through Isa? Well, that's Arabic for, do you know God through Jesus? Are you teaching your children about Isa? So she's talking with these ladies. She gets to know their names, and they say, oh, no, not yet, not yet. So, and in about 10 minutes, she's got her own hijab on and taking this selfie. She's got the contact information for one of the ladies. We're going to be back in Chiang Mai next October for our regional conference. And we hope to go down to the night market to see if those ladies are still there. But that is witnessing through intentional connecting with the people around us, getting to know the people around us. We live in a kind of a community that has a guard gate in front of it, just like 10,000 people back there. And then right in front of our community, our barangay, is a market where we buy our fresh vegetables and fruit and things like that. It's probably about the size of this room. One Saturday we went there, and these boys come up to us selling these little rugs, and I forgot to bring it in. It's out there on the table if you want to see it. These little rugs about this big. And so we bought a couple of them, want to help them out. We asked them their names. They tell us their names. Well, where do you live? We live in Rowenes. We know where Rowenes is. That's way back 2 miles away behind our seminary. Rowenes is a very poor community. Mostly of squatters who have just come there and built their houses with a river right through the middle. It's less width than this room here, with a river right through the middle. And so we asked them, do you know about the Church of the Nazarene there? Yeah, we know that place. Do you know Pastor Jackson? Yeah, we know Pastor Jackson. He's our pastor. These boys had been influenced by the Church of the Nazarene. So this is Rowenes. This is a church that was started about 7 years ago by our seminary students. In this community, there's the river, you can see, and there's your second floor house. But our church there has the drop-off. That's the river, and it often floods. And there's a new young pastor there. This church has had an outreach to children. Before the church was started there, this community had no running water, very poor sanitation. But through the ministry of this church, they were able to bring in Manila city water and started a health clinic. So this is an example of a church that has a vision to reach out to its community. But here's our challenge. For the last 1,500 years, the Christian church around the world has been following what's called the parish model. The parish model is where we get together on Sunday morning like this, and we do church. I'm going to church. We are going to meet on Sunday morning, and we have the pastor who is the professional minister. He's been trained, he's been through college or seminary, and then so when we talk about going to church, this is it. This is church. Well, this model has some problems. It's not working so well in some places in the world. It's not going to help us fulfill the mission that Jesus has given to us. But if a church has vision, it can be very effective as well. This is a church started by one of my former seminary students, Pastor Lott, and his wife Elaine Halleg. It's about an hour outside of Manila, out in the kind of the community. We were there about a year ago. These are pictures from a year ago. They just had temporary bamboo walls. Pastor Lott and his church have been building the facility, but that's not really the church for them. They have been reaching out to their community. They have been developing a children's ministry. The Sunday we were there, it was packed full of people, just about this size over here. But a very welcoming, loving service, great time of fellowship. I was talking with Pastor Lott a couple months ago before we came back to the U.S., and he said that they now have walls up on the outside. So I stole some pictures off of Facebook this week. So you'll see them here in a second. That Pastor Lott and his church, they want to make a difference. So having a parish church can work, but we have to be thinking outside the walls. These are the fresh pictures from their building. So now they have permanent walls up. So this church is trying to make a difference in their community. But here's another challenge. In our denomination, we have 28,000 credentialed ministers. What I mean by that would be an ordained elder, deacon, or district licensed minister. Half of those are in the USA and Canada. That leaves 14,000 for almost 2 million members in the rest of the world. If you do your calculations, it comes out to less than 1% of our church are ministers. Well, what do we do with the other 99% of us? That's the challenge. Our supervisor, field strategy coordinator, Stephen Guaberto, we call him Pastor Bong in the Philippines. He oversees the ministry in all of Philippines and Micronesia. He's also a local pastor, pastoring his home church in Cavite, about an hour south of Manila. We visited his church in August, brought some visitors there, and we arrived early at his church, and they were having children's church. Everything in that children's church was led by children. The singing, the music, the preaching, the offering, everything. There was one adult standing in back. Watch this little video. This video has sound. In this church, it doesn't matter what age you are a minister. Children can be leaders. Here's another ministry of this church. You'll see a picture of Pastor Bong here.
Is about making Christ-like disciples through sports. Here at Game Changer, young people have the opportunity to play their favorite sports, hear the Word of God, and have the opportunity to give their lives to the Lord and trust Him.
Every player is a disciple.
Every coach is a catalyst.
Not too long ago, Pastor Bong was sharing with me that a 13-year-old young man came to him and said, "Pastor Bong, I want to be a pastor." So Pastor Bong went to his church board, and they voted and gave him a local minister's license. And now this young man is in a simplified version of the course of study, 13 years old. Everyone can be a minister in the GMA Church of the Nazarene. In our theological education that I work in, we want to develop character. We have what are called the 4 C's: character, content, competency, and context. The goal of all of these is to become like Jesus Christ. That is the purpose of our education. That is the goal of everything that we do as believers, in fact, is to make Christ-like disciples in the nations. But here's the reality. Less than 2%, we call it the 2% reality, of people would consider themselves ministers. We've got our professional pastor. But what about the other 98 or 99% of us? Well, we can look at what's called the 2-2-2 principle from 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2. Paul sent Timothy to the church in Ephesus to find leaders in the local church to train them, who then would train others in the church. So he writes, "And the things you've heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others." So it's not just the 2% or 99% or 1%, it's the 100%. All of us are called to be disciple makers. All of us are called to be ministers. Our church is now in 162 nations. $37 million was given to World Evangelism Fund, and your church is part of that. Thank you very much. That's the lifeblood that keeps our ministry going. On our region, we have 122,000 members. But look at the next number. Only 638 new members in 2016 out of that whole huge Asia-Pacific part of the world. That's not a lot of growth. We have a huge mission to do. In fact, the need today, there are 2.4 billion people who have not heard about Jesus. And 86% of them have no Christian friend to tell them about Him. We serve on the Philippine Micronesia field, made up of 11 districts in the Philippines and then one small district in the islands of Micronesia. This is our team that operates out of our field office. We have different ministries. Jesus Film. Have you seen or heard of the Jesus Film? It's still very effective in evangelism, and we're still using it in the Philippines. We have Child Sponsorship Program, NYI or Youth, Nazarene Compassionate Ministries. NCM has a big ministry in the Philippines. There's always natural disasters. There's typhoons, earthquakes. Last year there was a volcano, and there was an uprising, a civil war down south. NCM is always on the front lines of that. We have work and witness projects in different places. Radio ministry, education, which is my area. Leadership development, member care. That's what my wife does, is help develop, watch out for our missionaries. Church growth and planting. Every year in the Philippines, 30 or 40 new church plants are started. Overseas Filipino workers. This is a new ministry of our field. There are over 1 million Filipinos who work outside of the Philippines in other parts of the world. Many of those are believers, and some of them are even Nazarenes. Our vision is to train them to be missionaries wherever they go, and then to take care of their families who are left behind. In fact, just a few weeks ago, the daughter of our district superintendent of our metropolitan Luzon district went to Dubai to be a teacher. And she's a Nazarene young lady, and she's very knowledgeable, very gifted. She can be a missionary in Saudi Arabia, where a missionary like me could never go. So our vision is to train them. Another new ministry is anti-child trafficking. The Philippines is known for human trafficking, and many of those victims are small children. So we want to do something about that in the Church of the Nazarene. Just a few weeks ago, I don't know if you get Nazarene news, but you could read the story about the Shechem House. This is a rescue house, just started about a month ago. We had the dedication. I wasn't even in the country. But it's a place where children who have been caught in human trafficking, caught up in that, can come, receive counseling, and have a safe place to live. And so our church is becoming more widely known for its efforts against human trafficking. Metro Manila, very crowded, dense city. 30 million people live in Metro Manila. And our Metro Manila district is the fastest growing district in the Philippines. Over 8,000 members. Every year at district assembly, they are reporting 10 or 15 new church plants. But that's just a drop in the bucket of this massive city. How are we ever going to reach the people of the city? On our region, we have 13 Nazarene schools. I noticed your Links missionaries out there serve at our regional seminary. I see the Oldhams and the Modines almost every day. Great people. They're serving the Lord at our seminary, which has 150 students. And then we have 2 Bible colleges in the Philippines, and I'll share about those here next. So our Northern College, PNC, is located in Baguio. It's about a 5 to 6 hour drive from Manila, up in the mountains. Very nice, very pleasant. It's kind of like here. They have pine trees, never gets hotter than 75 or colder than 60 degrees. Very pleasant. This college has about 50 college students in Bible courses and then teacher training. And then they have over 500 students in kindergarten through 12th grade. In the Philippine education, high school used to end at 10th grade. And then a few years ago, the government raised it to 12th grade. Well, that's a good thing, but it also has created a challenge for our Bible colleges. That means for two whole years, there were hardly any new students in college. It's kind of like a wave that's going through. And so our college has had financial problems. Well, thankfully, they've been able to add grades 11 and 12 to the other part of their college, and that's supplied extra income to the college. So thankfully, PNC has come through a financial crisis. At the end of September, there was a big typhoon that went through northern Philippines, including Baguio area. It rained 2 days nonstop and flooded our college. One of the dorms in the basement is where the elementary classroom has been meeting, and it caused a lot of flooding. Thankfully, no one got hurt at our college. They were able to get it cleaned up within a few days and get back into class. But the water just came rushing down the mountainside. And PNC is actually up on a hill like your church, but the water just had no place to go except the basement. You can imagine coming in, your church basement's flooded. It just flooded the soccer field and everything. The college is located right next to a property where some people have been developing it, and they cut away the hillside, and the wall was collapsing. It's about 30 feet high. And it collapsed to about this far. You'll see a picture of it here in a moment. About this far from our administration building. So this past year, 6 months, we built a sustaining wall through alabaster money. And you'll see a picture of that. So the wall stood up through the typhoon, thankfully. So there it is. That's what the contractor next door did. It's been a big problem for us. Almost came to the building. But we were able to build this sustaining wall to keep up the building. It's probably 25 to 30 feet high. But with this typhoon, all the water came right at the end of it, right there. So we're going to have to extend this wall further before there's further problems. Our southern college is called Visayan Nazarene Bible College. It's located an hour flight south of Manila in the city of Cebu. It's about the same size, except they do not have 11th and 12th grade yet, but about 50 college students. But another challenge we have, our two colleges last year graduated only about 20 students, 20 to 25. But just a small handful of those have gone out into pastoral ministry. If the Philippines has 400 churches, every year they're planting 30 or 40 new ones. Where are we going to find the pastors for this? What we're finding is that many of our churches are led by lay people. We're finding that people who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old are having a call to pastor their own church, but they cannot go to one of our Bible colleges. We have to take the college out to them. Our district I forgot this slide. So our regional director has given us a vision called 441. Every church in Asia Pacific is given the vision of planting a new one every 4 years. And then every believer will disciple a new one every 4 years. So we are taking the education out to the churches with a program called PhilTeen, Philippine Theological Education by Extension for Nazarenes. We have 200 students enrolled in this. I was working with our coordinator in the Metro Manila district a couple weeks ago by email, and they're going to start a new extension center in the northern Manila. So we're going to have probably 220, 230 next year. I was telling the districts, why don't we double that next year? There's no reason why we can't have 400 students in our extension classes. How about 1,000 students? It's up to the vision of the churches and the districts. God is doing something amazing. In May, I met with the Board of Trustees and administrators of our two Bible colleges, and we sat around tables, you see pictures here, dreaming, how can we fulfill this mission that God has given us? So we came up with some great ideas. So now we need to work over the next 2 years to implement those ideas. Our Micronesia district, pretty small churches, just 4 of them on remote islands. Very nice islands if you want to go do diving or tropical kind of things. Our church in Guam has about 70 or so people. These are pictures from our district assembly. Very small. I mean, that's the whole assembly. We met in a little room. 2 of the 4 churches are pastored by volunteer American missionaries. And then the other 2 are pastored by lay people. One of those churches on the island of Chuuk is pastored by a Filipino overseas worker. He works 6 days a week, 12 hours a day in a dive shop as the manager. And then on Sunday, he gives his time to the church. A year ago, Pastor Bong and I went to the islands, and we went there for the special dedication of the Chuuk Church. This church built this facility with their own money, with their own efforts. And so we were there on that Sunday. in Chuuk, people are very poorly educated. So the businesses bring in foreigners to do the technical work. So half this church are Filipino overseas workers. This church has an outreach to the children in the community. Life on this island is pretty difficult. Many of the children are poorly educated. They'll be in grades 5 or 6 and not even be able to read, see, spot, run. But there's a young lady in this church. She's the daughter of one of our OFWs. And she speaks 4 languages fluently, including the local Chuukese language. She's 16 years old. She is basically the children's pastor of this church. And you'll see there she is, Riza. And the children just loved her. When we were there, they just gathered around her, and she was just loving on them. And you can tell that the children highly respect this young lady. She is ministering to the children who, most of them just come from across the road from this church. I love this picture with Pastor Bong and the children there. Our other church is on the island of Pohnpei. Pastor Wynn Thomas is a layman. He works all week in Social Security. He's almost 65. And then he pastors the church. The church has been meeting on his property in a little room built onto the side. You see here, is built on the side of his house. Very small. When I was there, I was teaching a class on evangelism and discipleship. That's about how big the church facility was and how many people were attending the church. Well, Brother Wynn and Brother Rich need to get through the course of study. But it's very difficult, very expensive to go to these islands. So I've been struggling as the education coordinator how to help them with their studies. Just a couple of weeks ago, our missionaries there, Timothy and Lydia Kim from Korea, sent me pictures that they have outgrown that little room and they've moved outside. But a thing that we're praying about, see, Brother Wynn wants to donate property here to the church and build a building, permanent building. But not everyone in the family wants to do that. So if they go ahead and build this building and Brother Wynn passes away someday and the family says, we want this property back, they get the property back. So we're praying that God will work a miracle, that any legal work will be done or they'll find another property. But God is doing things on the island of Pohnpei in the South Pacific. This is the old way of educating. We send our students to the Bible college, and we expect the college to educate them, and just maybe we might get them back on our district. And very rarely, they might even come back to our home church. But we just kind of let the college do it all. And that's kind of the way we expect the church to do things. We just kind of have church on Sunday morning, and we hope visitors will come. Well, these ways of thinking are not working. We have to rethink our education. So we've been doing that on our region. One of our schools on our region has been doing some brave and innovative things. Southeast Asia Nazarene Bible College. Just a few years ago, they had about 200 students enrolled in extension sites in 4 countries. Not really growing. Their campus in Thailand was small, wasn't doing much. Then a couple of years ago, new leadership, new vision, and now they have 800 students enrolled at that college. Next year, I bet they're going to have 1,000 students enrolled at CNBC. Their philosophy is that every church is an extension of the Bible college. Every pastor is the teacher, and all the lay people are the students. I was at our Taiwan Nazarene Theological College in July. This college was closed for 20 years, and the campus had become overgrown, the building's deteriorating. 3 years ago, the Taiwan district, this is the hidden house. They didn't even know the house was on campus. It was so overgrown with weeds. So they've been clearing it out. 3 years ago, they said, let's start up our college again. So they've been cleaning up and starting classes, repainting the buildings, cleaning up the campus. The Taiwan district says, we want to get going again. For many years, it was just kind of plateaued. Now they have a new vision. When I was there, we met with the Board of Trustees. And we talked about how this college could become the primary training center for Chinese speakers around the world. My family and I went to mainland China, don't tell anyone, to teach a class. Delete that if you record this. It's very difficult to do that in the mainland. But those students can get visas to study in Taiwan, no problem. And they can get their education in Taiwan. So we're encouraging this college to expand their vision, not just with Taiwan, but to Chinese-speaking people around the world. So we'll see what happens in the next few years with this. Well, we want to do a new approach for education and disciple-making in our region. Our vision is that everyone can be trained, not just certain people like a pastor. Everyone can be trained. All of us are called to make disciples. Now, as the pastor, what you said this morning fits right with this. In fact, you read this passage. From this, God will raise up some people to be pastors and teachers. They're finding this out in the country of Myanmar. For a long time, the church of Myanmar was just plateaued, not growing. And then Southeast Asia Nazarene Bible College comes in with a new vision. Now they're training everyone. And what they're finding is that some people will say, they'll raise their hand, I think God's calling me to be a pastor. I think God's calling me to start a new Bible study. Now the church in Myanmar is starting to grow. They're planting new churches because everyone's being trained and some are being called into specialized ministries. So we want to emphasize character formation. When you go, I went through Nazarene education a long time, very academic. I took my first church. There are a lot of things I did not know how to do very well. All academic, not a lot of character formation. As a student, you forget most of what your teachers tell you, but it's who you are and your relationship with God. That's what will keep you in ministry. So we want to emphasize that. We want our education to be very practical. When I went through college and seminary, took a class like systematic theology. I read a textbook about that thick. I took a couple of exams. I sat in the library, wrote a term paper. That was it. I passed the class. It really had nothing to do with the church or the world. Now, in our new course of study, when someone takes any class, every class, they have to do an assignment in the local church and in the community. So when our students take systematic theology now, they have to do some assignment in the local church. And they have to do something out in the community. Go interview people. What do they think about God or the church? How will you address the needs of your community? And we want the Bible to be the primary textbook. Students have to read from cover to cover the Bible. And we want it to be quality. So we have a new way of thinking. We want to take the school out to the churches. And we want the church to go out into the community. We've got to rethink things. We can't keep doing things the old way. We will never reach or fulfill the mission that Jesus has given to us. So we've got to stop doing things the way we have been. We have to rethink and re-envision the church and our education. We can look to the early church as an example. In Acts chapter 2, verse 42, we find that the early church devoted themselves to 4 things. 1, Jesus' teachings, the apostles' teaching. What did the apostles teach? What Jesus taught. In today's terms, we'd say they devoted themselves to studying the Bible. 2, to fellowship, getting together, living life together, holding each other accountable, encouraging one another. 3, to the breaking of bread. I interpret this more than just simply the sacrament. They got together and they shared meals. And if you read those early chapters in Acts, we find that no one had any need. They shared their food together so that everyone had what they needed to eat. And 4, they prayed together. What did they pray? Well, one thing that Jesus taught them, He told them, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into the harvest field. They were praying for the mission that Jesus had given them. So in the early church, we see that they multiplied, they grew. There was no difference between theological education and discipleship. It was all done in the local church. Everyone was trained. And in that God raised up pastors and evangelists and missionaries and so on. When Rhonda and I returned to the Philippines 2 years ago, our regional office wanted us to go to Singapore for some training and reorientation because we'd been gone for 8 years. So we went to Singapore, got there to the regional office our first day, and one of our teachers stands up and asks us a question. Very powerful question. Do you know the name of the taxi driver who brought you here today? No. We had been so caught up in our own little world, we didn't even take time to meet the person who drove us. The second day, all of us knew the names of our taxi drivers. We knew about their families. We knew about the city. We knew how long they'd been driving. We had 20 minutes to encourage this driver. Wow, that is what the biggest thing that we've had to learn in the last 2 years, is to invest ourselves in the people around us. Let's go back to that opening idea. What does it mean to be a witness? It simply means, as this slide says, the person in front of me is more important than anything I have to do. Let me ask you that question. Do you know the name of the person who sold you groceries? Or the person at the gas station who pumped the gas? Here in Oregon, people pump your gas. So do you take time to know those people? Wow, powerful. Let whatever is inside of you spill out onto you to the people around you. Do you know that God has you where you are for a purpose? Here's another thing that this teacher told us. He told us that whatever you do, God has placed you there on purpose to reach the people you come in contact with. So that means you can be a God-called jeepney driver, a God-called taxi driver, businessman, teacher, mother, grandparent. Whatever you do, that is the church. It's not just Sunday morning. It's Monday through Saturday. I tried this a couple weeks ago. We've been traveling all over the Northwest, and I was at a Walmart and buying some things. So I got into the checkout line, and there's an older guy, he must have been about 60 years old, 60 or 65, who's checking us out. He had a name tag, Jason. So I had 5 minutes with Jason. So I greeted him. How you doing today, Jason? I hope you're having a good day. I really appreciate what you're doing here. And I had 5 minutes while he was going through that. I don't know what his day was like. He could have been having a bad day. And you know what Walmart can be like. It's not probably the easiest place to work sometimes. But I had 5 minutes to encourage this man. I was just planting a seed. Maybe I was watering that seed. Maybe someone else had said something to him to help him through his day. We are seed planters wherever we go. We're investing ourselves in the people around us. We might be the one who comes along and waters it. And in small communities, like this one, you get to know the people. You go to the same grocery store, get to know those people. You might be the one who just says something that encourages that person. And maybe that person will come to trust you over time. Being a disciple means deliberately identifying yourself with God's interests in other people. So that word witness does not need to be so intimidating to us. We are simply investing ourselves in the people around us, showing the people around us the love of God that we have inside of us. We don't have to preach the four spiritual laws or the Roman road. We might have the opportunity of doing that at some point, but we are the salt and the light. That's the big thing that I've had to learn. And it's like, yeah, I know that, but I don't really practice it. So I've been trying to come out of my shell and to invest myself in the people that I meet. And it's starting to make a difference. And God is working through me at Walmart or at the gas station or wherever we are. Well, thank you for letting me share. And I just appreciate how God is using places like this. Pastor, one more little thought. And I want to say this with what you said at the beginning of the service. I've been saying the same kind of message at different churches over the last month or so. And almost every place I go, pastors come up to me and say, that's what I've been talking about. I believe God is doing something new in the church around the world. And I can tell by what your pastor said, God is doing something new in your church here. And so the things that I've been telling about today, God's doing those things in Asia and Pacific and the Philippines. But He's also doing them here. So I'm excited for you. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor.